Hey bosses, before we get started, I want to tell you about two exciting things. One is the next Nomad Summit conference has been announced, and this year it's going to be in Cancun, Mexico. You can get more info at nomadsummit.com, and I'll tell you more during the break. Also, if you haven't signed up for travel insurance yet, and you are currently or planning to be a digital nomad, I'm excited to tell you, world's first ever travel insurance by digital nomads for digital nomads has been created by SafetyWay. Go to nomadsummit.com/insurance to check it out and sign up.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Привет и добро пожаловать на подкаст «Путешествуй как босс».
Привет and welcome to episode 219 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here in Weligama, Sri Lanka with Nikita and Anastasia. Welcome.
Hi Johnny, it's such a pleasure to be with you here and now in this wonderful place. I love Sri Lanka and I love Weligama, that's why I'm spending so much time here.
Yeah, actually, so you guys, so the way I guess we met is you guys have a Coliving station here with Samana. What does Samana mean?
So basically in Russian it sounds like Smena, or if you translate it into English, it means shift, and shift in both senses as to take a shift, for example, to take someone's shift, shift of work, and also a shift in life, like a change as well. So it has both meanings, same as in Russian as in English.
But also in Russian it has this feel of summer camp. So shift, smena is actually also...
Yeah, like a session in Russian summer camp. Yeah, right. We have this romantic vibe of basically a summer camp for adults that we're playing around with.
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. I think one of my biggest regrets as a kid is never going to summer camp.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, because you always see it on TV, like Camp Udawada, I hold you in my heart. And I just never had it. And now I feel like being a digital nomad or living this lifestyle is kind of like one long summer camp.
Yeah, it is. For some people it is. And we're trying to recreate this feeling in some way because our project is not a traditional co-living because it runs in sessions and you can only join for 3 or 2 weeks depending on the schedule, and you have to stay until the end because there's a framework that we're trying to work around, and we're creating this whole structure where people can meet each other, hang out and communicate and work together. Yeah, kind of like a summer camp for digital nomads.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And why did you choose Weligama out of all the places in Sri Lanka?
Back in 2015, we first visited Weligama, and it was much smaller than now, and there was like 2 or 3 places where you could rent a board before. And we came here in 2015 and realized that this place is amazing. We want to come back. So when in 2017 we first started the project, we were searching for a place, and then we're like, oh, we've been to this wonderful place in Sri Lanka. Let's just try it there. And here we are.
Well, basically the right answer is a beach break. That's the...
A wonderful beach break as well. We love surfing too, yeah, and it's nice for beginners, and it's a little crowded these days, but it's still a beautiful place to learn how to surf.
Yeah, I think for me it's been the best place in the world I've been to learn how to surf. You know, I'm sure more advanced people, enjoy other beaches in Sri Lanka, but actually even this morning I was taking photos on the beach and the waves were huge. Right. So you still get giant swells here, but it's nice because it's a soft sand beach break, so there's no reef, there's no rocks, it's easy.
Yeah, and the water's warm as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. I mean, Weligama has everything you need basically. It's you still see nature, animals, but it's big, it's populated, it's you have restaurants and places to eat and shop and all that.
And it's freaking cheap too.
It's so cheap. It's crazy because what I like about Weligama and the reason I chose it, besides just the easy surfing, is unlike other beaches like Unawatuna or Marissa, the kind of more popular beach destinations in Sri Lanka, here it also has a town center where locals live and hang out. So it's actually funny. Sometimes I'll bump into someone that lives in Marissa, and they said they came here just to buy a phone charger, because in the tourist places,
Right.
they don't sell anything like that.
Yeah, they don't sell it, or if they do, it's 2 or 3 times more expensive. So basically, if you're living here, your basic needs are covered on a much cheaper value, and that's a nice bonus.
Right, and you still have a chance to get involved in local life, to see how people live, what's the lifestyle, what's the cultural differences, and it's quite interesting. For example, we have a Sri Lankan lady cooking lunch for us. Well, first of all, it saves a lot of time, so you don't even have to go outside to get your lunch. You can just have a break for 30 minutes, take your food, enjoy a little chat with people, and just go back to work. But also it's local, non-spicy though, Sri Lankan food.
Yeah, I think it has much more value because being a digital nomad, you're always trying to kind of like dive into the local culture and really live in the country, but not just visit any like popular beach or something like that. And when you're here, you have all these interactions with the locals. The prices are cheaper, so I don't know. It's a cool digital nomad spot. That's what I think.
Yeah, I really like it here, and it's funny that you mentioned how much it's changed in the last 4 years, because I'm predicting that in the next, upcoming 4 years, it's going to change even more. I mean, right now there's one, or maybe there's 2 food trucks by the beach where they rent the surfboards. Mm-hmm. I'll guarantee that in 4 years, there's going to be 20 of them just on that road. But, maybe it's kind of a good thing too, right? Where a lot of the locals want the tourism. They want to kind of boost their economy. Sri Lanka is a beautiful place. I think it's a nice alternative to Bali.
Right.
It's cleaner. People are still friendlier. But I think that regardless of if we digital nomads popularize it or not, it's going to get popular.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it's a bad thing when people are opening local businesses in places like this, when foreigners are coming, digital nomads are coming and basically gentrifying the place. Because for me, I mean, I like it here and I like all the local spots, but sometimes I want a nice, like, I don't know, poke with fresh tuna or even a craft beer, which is impossible to get in here. But I think as soon as people start to move here and open businesses, and it's already starting, there are a couple of really cool spots that are owned by Europeans and foreigners, and they're amazing. I mean, they're doing some nice parties in there, and there's some decent, really cool and interesting dishes in the menu. So yeah, it's getting nice.
Well, I think we have to be responsible because it's still a very new country to the tourism scene, right? So like it hurts a lot to see, all the European and American and like Russian girls in bikinis in this town center. It's not supposed to be like that. And then of course, I mean, it creates all sorts of troubles for young generation, for just older generation, for everybody. Like, they're not used to it. And I think we have to be very cautious of what we do here and what values we bring. Because, I mean, there was 30 years of war here, 10 years ago? So they're very, very fresh to all the tourist stuff. And I think we are very responsible to what happens next.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I actually think it's cool that there's signs. I think they were put up by the Weligama Surf Club, where they label the bikini zones and non-bikini zones, and it actually kind of makes sense. Where when you kind of get into, when you're on the beach, it's completely fine to be in a bikini. It's encouraged to be in a bikini, right? They want you to enjoy yourself. They want you to surf. They want you to sunbathe. That's why we're here. And then basically once you get into the town where locals live and hang out, there's signs that say, okay, no bikini zone from here on, and I think it's kind of like a nice balance, right? Because, for example, let's say an extreme where they're like no bikinis on the beach, people just wouldn't come here, or
right.
People would just disregard the rules.
True. Yeah, there should be a balance, and I think one of our goals is to keep this balance as well, and we should be responsible as well as digital nomads and actually people that are traveling, bringing changes to a lot of places.
Yeah, and it's funny that we brought up the word gentrification, because normally when you hear it, it's always in a bad context. People, when you gentrify a neighborhood, people can't afford to live there, they move out.
Right.
But at the same time, just kind of the more extreme version of gentrification is like colonialism. And I was speaking to some local Sri Lankan guys, and I was asking them about like the Dutch fort in Gale, and because to me it's by far the most beautiful town in Sri Lanka. You know, it has really nice architecture. All the shops are super nice.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, you can get really nice coffee. You can get really nice ice cream and gelato there. It's not, you know, the typical Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them about what they thought about colonialism, almost expecting, you know, them to be like, no, it's terrible. We were under oppression. We were slaves for so long, you know. But the Sri Lankan guy was actually saying, no, it's, you know, it has its good, you know, pros and cons, but overall it was really good. It brought tea. It brought, you know, railroads and trains. It brought a lot of the kind of nice, you know, nicer parts of what we have now. So I think this is kind of similar with gentrification, where Sri Lanka, you know, didn't really have good coffee until kind of the hipster tourists like us came in.
Well, or they say before actually British guys came, Ceylon was a coffee island, and they had coffee instead of tea all over the place. And then, well, some people say that some kind of bug happened, some kind of insect ate all the coffee, or some people say that, well, bug ate all the coffee because the British wanted their tea, so they just switched to the tea industry.
Yeah, I wouldn't know now, but it's definitely a thing that all the businesses should be responsible. All the Europeans that are bringing businesses should definitely be responsible for the local culture and preserving all the local things and all the good things in the local culture, and just bringing something new and trying to make some good changes.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes, like, I also feel like as tourists, because we're willing to pay a bit more, sometimes what happens is we get like a better version of the local culture. Like, for example, when, you know, the typical lunch here is rice and curry, and if I walk into the local town past the bus station, I can get it for 100 rupees,
Right.
which is
crazy.
So cheap. It's like
50 cents.
Yeah. And I almost feel bad sometimes how cheap it is, but at the same time, I'm sitting in a dingy, dark, dirty hallway, you know, and the food, it's, you know, so tasty, but it's really basic. It's like cold rice, cold curry, and like a couple sides. Versus if I have rice and curry at a local shop that's more geared tourists, like where I live, you know, literally just behind us, it's 5 times the price. It's 550 rupees, which is still only $2.50. But the shop is clean. The curry, you know, the rice is always warm. It's fresh. The curries are always fresh and warm, and they just give you, you know, it's still Sri Lankan curry. Maybe they make it a little bit less spicy for us, but they just make the best version of it. And I think that's a good thing, where they're kind of pushing, you know, the best of Sri Lankan culture instead of just making it as cheap as possible.
Well, what you can buy in the street is actually food for fishermen, because Weligama essentially is a fisherman town, right? So it's food for somebody who doesn't have a wife, for somebody who came from the sea and wants a quick meal. So because everybody else has wives, right? They cook for them at home. So that's where you get best version of the Sri Lankan food.
So I need to marry a Sri Lankan girl.
Yeah.
Well, or you get some other way to cook them for you.
Yeah, but it's so nice that this place has all these options. That's what I think should be in any great place where you can travel to, and especially being a digital nomad, when you have all these options. If you want to go to a European cafe and pay like, I don't know, $5 for a really good coffee, you have that. Or if you want to leave cheap and you can buy a curry for 50 cents, you still have that option as well. That's what's great about this place.
Yeah, I like that as well. And that's a big reason why I like Chiang Mai in Thailand, is you have that as well. You have super cheap local places, and then sometimes just next door or a block over, you have a super nice hipster place with craft beer, you know, maybe a smoothie bowl, avo toast, whatever you want.
Nice.
Yeah. So where else do you guys have Smena stations?
So we now have locations in 4 places that are currently running at the same time. One is here in Weligama, another one in Koh Phangan in Thailand, another one in Bali in Ubud, and we're just launching a new location in Berlin right now. There's going to be a little test run though, just for a couple of weeks and to see how it goes. But yeah, we're kind of like expanding pretty fast since our launch in 2017, because we function as a community, and basically any member that attended one of our locations, we always encourage them to come back as administrators or facilitators, or even open their own locations, which basically been happening for the past couple of years.
So until we have eight locations?
8 locations, yeah, but we close them for off-season
Right.
in a lot of places, and then reopen them again. For example, right now we're going to be reopening our location in Montenegro in the end of April, when the season is going to be starting there.
Okay. Yeah, definitely makes sense. And I think that's cool. I mean, I attended your kind of introduction
Right.
meetup. Like,
Elevator pitch night.
yeah, and I guess it was a transition where you have a new set of people coming in, so everyone can kind of figure out what everyone else is doing. But what was nice is you also invited the past attendees and also some of the local or traveling digital nomads like myself. All right, bosses, I wanted to quickly tell you more about the Nomad Summit and also the travel insurance I had mentioned earlier. So the reason why we chose Cancun, Mexico for the Nomad Summit this year is because even though we liked Vegas, we really want to take advantage of the fact that as location-independent entrepreneurs, as digital nomads, we can travel the world and go to better, cheaper, warmer places. And nearby Playa del Carmen is the Cancun airport, where we're going to be hosting this year's Nomad Summit conference. Right by the beach, it's beautiful. We're gonna have tacos, tequilas, and if you stay the week after, we're all gonna head down to Playa del Carmen to co-work together, and who knows, go scuba diving, go snorkeling, and really enjoy our time. If you want to know more, just go to nomadsummit.com. You can sign up. You can RSVP on our Facebook. You can buy pre-sale tickets right now on sale. And regardless if you're coming to the Nomad Summit, if you're already traveling or you're planning to travel somewhere else, I would highly recommend everybody get travel insurance, especially travel medical insurance. Safety Wing has created the world's first travel insurance really specifically to cover our lifestyle and our needs for long-term travel. Go to nomadsummit.com/insurance to sign up and check them out.
Basically, we have a framework of events throughout each session, and some of them are open to the public, like the one you've been to. And each location is not just a place where our people live or like a little co-working spot just for our team, but we're trying to make it like a hub for the whole digital nomad community in the area, where people can attend the events, network with each other, and just learn something new and interesting and just meet new people.
Yeah, I think it's really cool and really well needed, especially in places like Weligama, where there is no community at all.
Right.
There's no co-working space. There's no cafe where everyone hangs out at. There's not even an online presence for.
Well, let me tell you, Russians got discovered. We do have an online chat.
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
It's very interesting. We've been trying to find more digital nomads traveling in Sri Lanka, basically like that speak English, but they were really hard to find. But all the Russians, there are a lot of Russians here. I guess like Sri Lanka is one of the most popular destinations in the past couple of years for Russians to travel. And all the Russians, we have all those chats in Telegram and WhatsApp and Facebook groups just for Russians. And it's so much easier to find Russian-speaking people here than actually to drag all the English speakers from all around the island.
Yeah. What I actually thought was really fascinating when I went to your meetup is how big the Russian nomad community was. Because I had no idea. I don't think I've ever met I never got tapped into the Russian nomad community. I just assumed there was just one nomad community and we spoke English for whatever reason.
That's interesting.
I think there's also a big German nomad community as well. And maybe there's nomad communities for all languages. I just don't know about them because I don't speak the language. But it's really interesting to see how huge the Russian nomad community is here in Sri Lanka, when the English nomad community is really just like 3 people that are here for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting, and I can tell that in any country, if you pick, for example, Thailand, or if you pick Philippines, there are chats like that in Telegram just for the Russians that don't speak English at all, that are digital nomads and still traveling, not knowing English, which is surprising, but they're still working remotely, working for Russian companies and doing some cool projects. And you can find those in any country, and Sri Lanka is not an exception. There's a huge community of Russians traveling in here.
It helps a lot. Like, you come and you already know where to eat, where to go. We have, you can ask any question in that chat. So actually, that's the reason why we started our project Smena Station, because we wanted people who share our values, who share our lifestyle, because it's very helpful. Like, what are we gonna do in a few years when we're gonna have kids? We still want to travel. Like, how they're gonna study, you know, how they're gonna go to school. I don't know, but I have community, so we will probably figure it out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And actually, so I just took a course called Learn Cyrillic in 3 hours. It took me 9 months to finish the course.
It's very difficult, yeah.
But now I can kind of read Cyrillic. I think it'll be way too difficult for me to join a chat and keep up.
Right.
But I'm one step there.
Yeah, nice. There's a huge community.
We have actually one guy from from Smena Station is American, but he speaks very, very good Russian, and he's saying it was such a hard language to learn.
Yeah.
I actually bumped into him and his wife at the restaurant next door, just here. And actually, what's funny is the other people that live in this homestay are all Russian families.
Oh, okay.
So they travel with their kids, their babushka, their grandmother.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is they all cook every meal. Mm-hmm. And like, not just like, you know, making a snack or something. I feel like they brought their entire kitchen with them.
Right.
And I know this because when I first arrived, the kitchen here, the communal kitchen, was pretty bare bones. There was just a burner and like not much else. But then all of a sudden I saw like electric tea kettles, then I saw a toaster, and then I saw a like pressure cooker crock pot kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm like, where did this come from? And I was speaking to the lady, and she was like, oh, we brought it from Russia in our suitcase. Is that like insane, or is that normal?
No, that's actually a thing. And within those chats that I just mentioned, there are Russian food deliveries just in Russian and just for Russians.
With Russian food.
With Russian food within those chats. Even though we are kind of accepting of other cultures and kitchens, basically other food, I guess there's a lot of stuff that just Russians like to eat and to cook, and just the culture of cooking at home is very big. That's what I think. That's an interesting detail about it. Also, I spent a lot of time in New York, and no one really cooks in New York. Like, everyone eats out, and but a lot of Russians that I know, they cook for themselves, they cook for their friends, and one of my friends, he's a chef, and he's always saying how he's puzzled and amused by all these Russians cooking all the time.
Yeah, but I can see it being just part of the culture of just saying, you know, hey, I want to eat what I eat. And I think it's different. I mean, I'm assuming the Russian families coming here on vacation are not, you know, backpacking around with their crock pot. They're flying directly from Russia.
It's a direct flight, yeah, and that helps.
Yeah, and then they check into this place for 3 weeks. They set up, they cook, and then in 3 weeks, they pack up and they go back.
Are they coming for 3 weeks? Is that...
Yeah, actually, my Russian's not that good, so I haven't been able to ask.
Right.
Well, in Russian, we have this term, it's called zimovka in Russian, which is, you can kind of translate it like wintering. And it's basically leaving Russia like middle of October, and for the whole winter, because winters are severe, like, and super cold in Moscow and most of the country. So going to Thailand or Sri Lanka or any warmer place, spending the whole winter here, and then just coming back to Russia. And a lot of people work remotely doing that. That is quite popular. But also a lot of people just save all their money during the whole summer they're working, just to save money for this wintering thing.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And actually, I was surprised when when I heard what kind of business you guys are in. It's kind of similar, where you have a seasonal business,
right?
And you work really hard for half the year, and then the other half you get to travel and work on these projects that you like.
Yeah, it used to be that we just work for 4 months and don't work other 8 months. But now, of course, it's not like that. We have Smena Station going on year round. And, I believe that you cannot spend more than 30 days straight on the beach doing nothing. People are creatures that are meant to create and, do interesting projects. So yeah, we do holiday ornaments. We run this project remotely. We sell in Russia and United States.
Yeah, basically, a seasonal business is a great thing. I would certainly recommend anyone, if you don't know what to do, start a seasonal business because, you work hard for several months a year and making a lot of money, and then you have the rest of the year, which is free for you to explore some new opportunities, to travel around the world, I don't know, maybe meet other new people and try out some new businesses. And that's one of the reasons we came up with our community and the co-living project, Smena Station, because we had a lot of free time, not selling Christmas ornaments in summer because no one's going to buy Christmas ornaments in summer. And we just were volunteering a lot, bringing new ideas into our heads, and they formed this idea of a digital nomad community for Russian, which is kind of like a summer camp and whatever together.
I'm also very proud to say that our business is a family business. So we brought Nikita's mom, my family, my sister, my father, all together, and they're working and helping us with ornaments. It's actually keeping relationship. It's a big issue for digital nomads. It's quite a challenge to maintain those relationships, especially with your close family, because they always call you and they're like, where are you? Why aren't you coming home? And all that. So we don't have that because we're always in touch. We always talk to each other via chat or like discussing some kind of business. So our mothers are not housewives anymore. They are involved in something they like. They are involved with us. They're very proud of what we do together as a family. I think that solved like half of our issues.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. And just even the fact of being able to work online or remotely, from a country like Russia where the average salary, if you're in a smaller like village or if you're not in Moscow or St. Petersburg, the salary is probably not very high, and people really want to leave for the winter, but they can't.
Right.
But if they can work online and they can go wintering, I think Americans would call it like snowbirding, to Sri Lanka or somewhere else and still be able to make money, especially when they, normally would be a housewife. This is really cool.
Yeah, it certainly is a good option for a lot of people. And in general, it's just like not just some easy things that are easy to learn that people are doing, studying in Russia and then going off travel. There are a lot of web developers from Russia, and basically, I'd say maybe like a third of Silicon Valley are like developers and all the IT workers from Russia, or at least that know Russian. So, I mean, it's quite obvious that a lot of them, after spending several winters working in an office in Moscow with all the traffic and all the prices, they think like, well, I can do the same stuff remotely, and they just take off and travel.
Yeah, I think it's super smart, and it really is the future. And it's not just in the U.S. I think a lot of people falsely assume that tech startups, the digital nomad movement is primarily an American thing, or like an English-speaking thing. Mm-hmm. But it's in every country now.
Well, I also have to say that it was very easy for us to build such a thing with the Russian-speaking community because essentially, culturally, we know how to live as a community. Like culturally, I think everybody in our circle is willing to give up some personal space, is willing to give up some kind of comfort, because living with 12 other people is uncomfortable sometimes, right? You do get lots of benefits, and you do get lots of inspiration and meaningful connections and all sorts of useful information, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, and I think if anything, I know you guys really are trying to make Samana Station more international and more English-speaking, and I appreciate that because it's nice for me to be able to go to these events. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, it's probably just way easier if you just keep it a Russian, only co-living space.
Yeah, it would definitely be much easier, and also we're kind of getting lazy because we have a big enough demand of Russians that are basically filling all the spots that we have for all 4 locations that we currently are having around the world. But I feel that there's so many ideas that can come alive if we just mix Russian community with the rest of the world and all the other communities, not just, like Americans, for example, or Australians traveling, but I imagine there are simply like amazing and similar communities in India, in Philippines, in the Arab countries, anywhere that are willing to travel, that are willing to work remotely and live together and coexist and bring some new ideas to life.
I think it's also important for us because Smena Station is very different from other co-livings we experienced, because we do have a structure, right? And we do have strong values and principles behind the whole project. So I'm a little bit disappointed what's happening with the co-living industry right now in general, because most of the time you get this beautiful website with a beautiful slogan, awesome people, come surf the wave, hang out with awesome people. But awesome people is not a community, right? It takes way more than that, than just surround yourself with the 15 random people. So what we do have a system of selection.
We personally interview each and every person that comes to the project because we want to know that they're actually sharing the same values and they have the same view of the things, and they really want to not just go to a place. And for example, in Sri Lanka, there are a lot of people traveling here just for vacation,
right?
But we're specifically searching for people that are willing to come up with new projects that have some kind of remote work or project that they're working on, because that will allow us to create this atmosphere of co-creation.
Yeah, it was pretty cool hearing the different projects that people were working on. I mean, unfortunately, I was only able to stay for the first half with the English speakers because my Ruski is not the best. But it would have been so fascinating because, I mean, like, what are some of the industries or kind of businesses and types of work that people are doing in like right now at the house, at the villa?
We have all sorts of different people. That's one of the things that we're also trying to create. We're not really taking all the people that are doing the same thing. For example, there's no Smena that has like 20 social media managers.
Right.
But it's always an interesting mix of people because, for example, the mastermind groups that we're having each session, there are several of those. They work better if you have a very different mix of professions and skills that people carry. Right now, for example, we have a writer that's actually a guy from the United States that speaks Russian and reads and writes even in Russian a little bit. We have a girl that owns a little marketing agency. There are, I think, 2 social media managers, a video editor.
Somebody who sells photo and video content on the stock.
Also, a girl that works with Google search engines, and she's kind of like a developer for those.
Guy who runs an online school for all sorts of skills.
Yeah, a couple of business owners, and the businesses are very different. So it's always an interesting mix of different skills. A photographer, of course. There's always a photographer or a yoga teacher.
And a yoga teacher.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I'm glad that this kind of movement exists. You know, I think being location dependent, being like, working online, working remotely can get a bit lonely sometimes.
Right.
So it's nice getting plugged in. And I actually kind of like that your program is only 3 weeks, because even though I like the idea of remote year, I wouldn't want to commit to 1 year of moving around so much and then kind of being around in one group for 1 year versus 3 weeks. It's enough time to get to know everyone, and then it seems like everybody kind of just sticks around afterwards to hang out anyways.
Right, they just rent something outside of our house and just stick around.
Yeah, we kind of position the project in a way as a trial for some people that never tried a co-living before, and they want to see if it's actually a thing for them, because some people, they can just live on their own in an apartment, it's all fine, right? It's not for everyone. And other people that want to try the whole digital nomad lifestyle as well, because we have cases of people taking vacation for a couple of weeks from the office, trying to work it from some Sri Lankan place or other destination, and then after 2 weeks in Smena Station, they just like changing their ticket and saying their boss that they're not coming back, and actually like staying after Smena with the community, renting some place nearby. It's a common thing.
We're looking into making corporate Smenas for businesses or for corporations, but then we quit on that because the rate of people quitting after the project is too big.
A lot of people going freelance, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like those companies would be pretty upset.
Yeah, I know, right?
So let's talk about back to the seasonal business, because as someone who does e-commerce, one of the first things that we try to avoid when we pick a niche for our dropshipping stores is we don't want seasonal businesses, mainly because for the other 8 months we don't have any money coming in. And I think it's really cool that you basically did the exact opposite, and you're like, you know what, let's make this work, and let's not just sit on our butts for the other 8 months, but let's actually, use that time for something else. But do you ever feel like during those 8 months, it's always kind of like on your mind, or the back of your mind, and like you never really get to rest from it?
No, actually, exactly the opposite. That's something that I like about it, because if I'd be doing the same thing year-round, selling ornaments 24/7, basically, I would burn out. I would have burned out maybe several years ago. And this flow, the seasonal flow, gives me a chance to really work hard and be excited for 3 or 4 months doing the project, and then I'm super tired of it. I really don't want to see any ornaments. I'm doing some taxes and some paperwork after that. But then maybe like 4 or 5 months later, after this whole kind of like season finished and I spent several months traveling around the world, I'm starting like to miss this vibe of like this excitement of like selling all these things and this Christmas mood as well, because we're selling Christmas ornaments. And I'm like, I really want to go back. I really want to do this again and again. And this whole flow actually feels amazing. And that's what I like about it.
And where do you guys sell it? Like on your website or in stores?
We do have a website, and we do sell through social media and on other online platforms.
Yeah, we do Etsy, we do Amazon Handmade, and we actually sell a lot of stuff on the markets. There are a lot of seasonal markets in New York, like the smaller ones in Brooklyn, or there's Artisan Fleas in New York, which is a pretty popular one. We never tried the bigger ones like the Bryant Park, for example, because it's kind of like a big investment for us. We're not sure if we're ready for that yet. But yeah, it's a lot of markets, some online platforms, and it's
some wholesale, some corporate orders.
Yeah, we have several stores around the States as well, and the same thing basically is happening in Russia, but it's 2 separate businesses, because that one is owned by our family and that is doing the same thing, and the American side of it is owned by us, and we're doing this in the States, the same thing on our side.
And where are you like sourcing the products? Like who's actually making the ornaments?
We have a team that is working for us that is basically doing, it's still handmade. Because the first collection we created just as gifts for our friends and family, and we gave it to them, what was it, like 8 years ago, and they loved it, and we're like, oh, well, if they like it, maybe other people would want to buy it. So we just tried selling it, and people loved them as well, and we started selling those things. And yeah, they're now made in the same way that we used to make them 7 or 8 years ago. It's handmade, it's natural glass, and with some natural flowers inside, and like a meaningful wish on a tag that's attached to it.
Yeah, and it's also our grandmothers are involved in Russia. They grow flowers in their gardens, and they do it anyway because they like it. But now we do use what they produce, and they're also very excited to be part of it. And then, we will be sending them pictures from the all craft fairs we go to, from all like huge chains we're in. And they're like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. They get excited as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Dude, are you shipping the products from Russia to the U.S.? Or?
No, No, we have two separate productions set up, one in Russia and another one in the States, because it's much easier.
And I think
than
it's
shipping.
important to be local, it's very important to have a local production and to source your ingredients locally. And we're fortunate enough to be able to do it both in Russia and in America. And when we started, we were very afraid of somebody copying us, because this idea is pretty unique, and well, we did create it ourselves, and we were very worried. But today I realized that you cannot copy lifestyle business. Nobody else can do it. It's going to be something else. It's not going to be the same way, because only our family lives the way we live, right? So there is no point of doing the same thing. It's not going to be sustainable.
I was actually thinking about competition when you first mentioned ornaments, because I have a feeling that a lot of people that heard that were like, oh yeah, I should sell ornaments. But then when they actually looked at your product, and like, it's complicated. It takes a lot of effort, and it's like, it's not something you can just buy off of AliExpress or something.
Right. And also when people come to markets and they see us, they hear the story, they get very excited about us actually making it and creating and like involving all the family. And I think especially in New York, people appreciate when it's locally made and when it has a story behind it. Nobody wants just another ornament. Everybody wants a story.
Yeah, I think these days it's becoming more important, not actually what you're making, but actually how you're making it and how you're selling it, and the whole way of selling and the platforms that and all these suppliers. These are as valuable as your own product and the idea that you're carrying.
Right, especially for example, markets. It's different. It's a separate thing. You have to know all those little things, how your table is supposed to look like, how do you approach the customer, how do you follow up with them, and all that. That's just a different field of expertise, I believe.
It takes years to figure it out.
Yeah. I think it's cool that you guys, essentially have an offline business.
Right, but we run it online.
Yeah, and this is something completely different. I think so many people who dream about traveling, or being a nomad, we think it has to be 100% online, because, we can't physically be somewhere. But you've just proven that you can. You can kind of have the best of both.
I hate all those articles. 10 best online jobs to work remotely. It does not matter what's the most well-paid job. If you don't like what you do, it's not gonna work. The most valuable thing in life is motivation. What drives you, what pushes you out of your bed in the morning. That's what is important, and that's what you're supposed to look for. You're not supposed to look for another very nice thing to invest into, right? Or another very useful skill to have if you don't want to use it, if you don't know how to use it, right?
Yeah, you should definitely just look inside yourself and find what you like before you really want to hop off and travel. And it shouldn't be something that everyone else is doing, because what we do when we tell people that we're selling Christmas ornaments, everyone's like, wow, this is a niche. Like, I've never heard anyone doing this. I didn't know that you can make money with it. But I heard of people doing even more niche things. There's a guy I know that I met in San Francisco on one of the meetups, and he told me when I asked him what he's doing, he said, "Oh, I'm making money." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Well, basically, he said, "I'm making coins, the collectible coins that countries make when there's like the celebration or some holiday or something, or Olympics is happening in the country." So basically he only has 200 clients in the world that he can sell to, and he still does a lot of money with it.
Oh, that's cool. That's kind of a niche kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why we're very big on goal setting. We do set goals for 10 years, for 5 years, for 2 years, for a year, for each quarter, for each quarter, and it's actually a very useful tool for us as a couple, as a business partners, to stay synchronized. Even though we do travel everywhere together and we do run projects together, when we will have a review of past year, and in this review you have to pick a trip of the year. And it's going to be different. It's going to be different for Nikita. It's going to be different for me. And for us, it helps us to be synchronized in where we're going together and whether we still want to do it together or maybe not, and all that.
So how is that, working together, living together, being in a house with dozen other people? like being together basically 24 hours a day. Like, any tips on that?
Well, it's not easy sometimes, but there is a lot of growth in it for sure. And I mean, I love it. I'm used to it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't want to do it, right? I'm choosing whatever I want to do in life, and I don't know. It feels like family. Anastasia is my partner, and she brings me all the ideas, and we kind of like really work well together. And what she just mentioned about goal setting, I think that's something that really helps us to stay on the same page.
What about you from you, Anastasia?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I can say goal setting. That's actually, well, some people, we do give lectures on goal setting, and people will be like, what about spontaneous, please? What about
like being spontaneous?
What about being spontaneous? What about, do you go on dates using your Google spreadsheet? Yes, we do. Well, because that's important to be consistent in those things. And actually, that's that's the reason why we came up with Smena Station. Again, we reviewed our current projects, and we reviewed our current lifestyle, and we're like, okay, what is missing? Because we did feel like something missing. And it turned out that in 10 years, we want to be where we want to be. We have to have this community of like-minded people, and that's how we started. Again, with goal setting.
Basically, the community gives us all the communication that we need, all the instruments that we're missing when there's just the two of us, because we need a third-person view in some things. We need a team sometimes to create some project. We just need some proper, deep communication. And even though we have it, the two of us, it's really nice to have other people around and more consistent relationship with other people. And that's what we're trying to build within the community.
I do think that other people is a mirror of who you are. And actually, when I do meet people which I don't really like, or something, disturbs me in that or triggers me, I do think of them as opportunity for myself to grow. I do believe that Nikita is a great partner because he allows me to see myself more fully and to see my sides, different sides of myself. So that goes well with the 12 other people as well. But let me tell you, we're not living in Smena Station all year round. So we are running 3 sessions right now here in Weligama.
It's the third session, yeah.
Right, but initially we built this project so it can totally work without us being involved every day. So we have location in Bali. We've never been to Bali. We've never been to Montenegro or Berlin or where else we have all of those places.
Yeah, Malta. It's an interesting lifestyle, and we like it, and we like being in a team, and it's very inspiring, but it's also very intense. So we often say to people that are coming to the project that it's nice to change the location every once in a while. That's why we have a network, because when you're changing the location, you're kind of like bringing a different vibe, bringing a different mood as well. And being in one place for so many sessions and so many ideas and so many people around you is sometimes can even be a little bit more intense than you want.
So I think the next step would be having one house with all those 3-week sessions running, one after another, and then having a separate number of buildings in one place, which will be dedicated to people who are staying for longer. Because you cannot, the dynamic is very different when you live together for 3 weeks or for 3 months.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that. And just the fact that it's like twin share, where economically it wouldn't make sense to have a 12-bedroom villa or something.
Right.
You probably can't even find it here in Sri Lanka.
No.
That's the biggest issue we have in every country is real estate.
Yeah. And, I guess you're just renting places for like a 3-month contract or...
For a year, for half a year.
Yeah, sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's half a year. Yeah, basically we're renting it long term to make it cheaper, and also we're trying to make it really not like crazy ass expensive, because we want the price for each 3-week session to be comparable to basically the price of you renting a room for yourself, just like a not expensive room in the same area. Because, for example, in Sri Lanka, the 3-week session is $250, and if you're just renting a room, it's usually going to be like $10 or $12 a day. So which is basically the same, but you're also getting all these valuable things from the community and a lot of inspiration and all these workshops and just endless joy of living with other inspiring people.
So people do share a room. So boys live with boys and girls live with girls. But we actually do it on purpose. I do believe, and I do see how, all those grown up people, 30, 25-year-old, they're sitting after 10 o'clock, sitting in one bed, chatting, all those inside jokes. You will not experience that. Nobody will force you. After 30, nobody will force you to share a room with somebody else, but it does create very intimate relationship and very deep connections. So people become friends in 3 days.
Again, that's why it's in sessions, that you can try it out, you see if it works for you, and you can get some inspiration, and that's why it's called a shift, a change, right? It's a change in your life that you can try out and see what happens. But there are also options of getting your own room in some of our locations. If we have enough rooms that we can allow ourselves a separate bedroom for a person to rent, we do have it. We did have it in Thailand, and we have it in Bali as well in our location. It's just that it's very hard to find a really nice and not expensive house with enough rooms in any place we go
proper
to.
Kitchen and the co-working space and everything. So I think we're looking into just buying land and building our own thing.
Wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah, or finding a developer that would build a co-living of our dream that we could just rent for 10 years or something like that. It would be amazing.
I actually think that's the big next step for companies like Remote Year, where they were pretty smart in the beginning. They would just rent a place month to month, and then after I think their goal was, let's try to have 12 groups a year so that we can rent a place year round, which is much cheaper and more stable. You're not always looking for a place. And every month there's a new person or new group moving in, and then eventually, instead of renting it year round, they can just buy a whole building or buy a whole villa, and then have people basically paying off their commercial loan. And it's almost like the McDonald's business model,
right,
where the franchisees are basically paying for the land that McDonald's corporation owns. So McDonald's is actually making more money
on the real estate
than they are selling hamburgers or even franchises.
Right.
But I do think it's really cool to see a kind of a nomad-based company, like a co-living company, buy or build. I mean, I never thought that would happen, because in general, most digital nomads we value, freedom, flexibility, minimalism, not owning anything, living cheaply. But this really is the next level of it.
It's a big debate for us right now. Yes, as you said, we do see it both ways. We don't want to invest in real estate because that's kind of old school, and there are other ways to invest right now. But still, we do really want to have a comfortable space and be able to provide our attendees with a nice environment.
Yeah. So when I actually looked at your site and the price list, I was actually shocked how cheap it was. Why is it so cheap? Why don't you just charge more?
Well, that's another reason, right? So what happens, I heard, right, talking to all the other co-living entrepreneurs and people in the industry, that what happens in the places who charge $2,500 for a month, right? You come there and the environment is very...
Even?
Even, right? It's basically same people with the same kind of job, because nobody else can afford it, right? There is no way somebody who's doing well.
Well, what I can say also is that it's for us, we're not really trying to make money out of the whole thing, because we're making money with the ornaments, and that's our main source of income. And the value that we see in the community is the people that we can get from there, and all the ideas that we can get from the people, and all the new projects that we can come up with the people. Because since the start of the project in 2017, I worked with a dozen of people doing random projects. We mined some cryptocurrency in Siberia, and we started another spin-off from the co-working project that we have in Malta. And it was just so many cool ideas ideas that this project brings that are more valuable than actually trying to make money out of it. And also another reason is that this whole project was really inspired by our trip to Burning Man in 2015, and the whole gift-based economy and the whole sharing with other people ideas basically tells us not really to try to, you know, kind of like make as much as possible and run away to another place, but actually try to give something to the people and try also to bring a lot of people into the community. And moreover, well, right now you're saying that the prices are really cheap comparing to a lot of other projects. The first location we launched here in Sri Lanka in 2017 was actually donation-based. And we just invited people saying that come to Sri Lanka, live for free, and if you like the project, you can just leave a donation after that and see how it goes. And everyone was saying that, oh, you know, this donation-based model, it's so bullshit, it's not going to work, you're not going to make any money, you're going to lose everything. Well, first of all, we just basically we came up with a number in our heads and calculated the amount of money that we're ready to spend, and if we're going to lose everything, it's not going to be a problem for us. Yeah. And then we valued the people that we wanted to bring into the project. So we started this whole thing on donation, and we had around 50 spots that were available in a 2-month period, and we had almost 1,000 applications just from Russians that want to come to the project and be with us for several 2-week sessions and exchange the ideas. And it actually worked. Not only we made our money back that we invested in the beginning, but we actually made enough money to launch our next location that was in Malta. And it's been working since then on a different model, not donation-based, because we decided to change it. But still, it's working.
Right, and out of the out of thousands of applications, we chose, you know, best people out there. We chose people who came. We had very little idea what we were doing, right? We had some ideas and some, I don't know, instruments we picked up on our travels, but we had no idea what we were doing. So when those people came, they basically gave us all necessary information. They told us how they want to see it, what they want to experience from the project. So we did exactly that, you know, and it's running since that. It's running on the same kind of schedule and the same kind of framework.
I think that's really cool. That's actually a really smart way to kind of MVP a new project. We did the same with the Nomad Summit the first year. I had the idea where I wanted to have a conference for digital nomads, and nobody in Chiang Mai was doing it. And I thought, okay, well, let me rent this seminar room. At most, I'll lose a few $1,000s from the room rental, even if nobody shows up. But let's just try it. And the first one was actually donation-based as well. And we ended up, you know, breaking even, but having maybe a little bit extra. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. And it was a really nice feeling. Like, it's a really cool feeling of, like, really building community. And I guess it's a little bit unfortunate that, like, as we grow, like, we have more costs or fixed costs, and we kind of have to move away from that model a bit.
Right.
But it's still, I think, you know, starting a project, starting a business with that model, I think is a really smart move.
Yeah, it's definitely a great one.
I think the word free sells the best way possible, right?
Yeah.
So our slogan was come to Sri Lanka and live for free.
Yeah, and I can see why you got 1,000 people applying for it.
Yep.
And it's funny because I think that in general, people would donate, you know, some people would donate more than they would have paid.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and then some people, you know, either can't afford it or some people are just cheap, right? But it kind of gets offset. I did a Vipassana. It's like a 10-day silent meditation. And that was donation based. And, you know, even though in the beginning of it, you're kind of like, okay, what's the like least amount I can give? By the end of it, if you're getting value from it, then you're like, okay, you know what? Let's not be cheap. Let's give them some money so they can continue doing this for other people.
Right. And they ran in every country. Like, there are several locations in every country where you can do Vipassana that way. And I mean, of course, they do have bigger donors and all that, but still, that works.
Yeah, and I also believe these projects are really teaching one very important thing, is that the more you give, the more you're going to get back sometime later. So the whole giving economy, the whole donation-based economy, it works because all these people that are learning that, well, I really want to contribute, because the more I'm going to give right now, the more the life is going to give me in some random place. It's going to give me all the things that I need.
Right, but also coming back to goal setting, we didn't want to deal with the sheets and, just hospitality business in general. We wanted to build a community. That's why, again, it's not expensive to come to Smena Station, because we're looking into people. We're not looking into money.
Yeah, I like that. And it's nice that you guys have a business that can financially support you. I think there's a lot of people who have good intentions and good dreams, and they just want to do a nonprofit, or they want to just do an NGO. But if they have zero business sense and zero financial sense, they just can't do it. They don't have the time for it. Somebody else has to take care of them. They can't even take care of themselves. So I think it's a nice mix of having enough business acumen, business sense, where we can support ourselves, have some extra money, so then we can fund projects that help others.
Right, but on the other hand, don't get me wrong, this project is sustainable, right? And even nonprofits are supposed to be sustainable. It cannot work just on donations, or it has to, pay the bill. And of course, we do get salary from which we pay ourselves, right, for the time we spend working on Smena Station.
Same as administrators working on the locations.
Right, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, even for nonprofits, that's what happens here in Sri Lanka. I think lots of, after the war, lots of nonprofits came giving people, boats and supplies and all that kind of stuff. But it was basically working on donations. So when the crisis finished, when this very dramatic events ended, then they were just stuck with no help at all, because it was not sustainable at the beginning. So right now, I think there are a lot of social businesses opening up in Sri Lanka where they do provide jobs, right? They do provide women with jobs. So, something small, something, handmade, so they can sustain themselves and their kids.
Yeah, building sustainable models, that's what's important in any business, whether it's a nonprofit or it's a co-living, or even if it's a community, being a sustainable community, building a sustainable community. That's what's probably one of the biggest challenges right now with the whole co-living industry and trying to make it work. It's what we're also trying to find ways of doing it through our project.
Yeah, I think that's really smart that you brought that up, that it has to be self-sustainable. There's so many NGOs and nonprofits that I've come across, even when I was living in Chiang Mai, that their business models just sucked. They had good intentions, they had good people working for them, but because they had no business sense, they were just reliant on the goodwill of other people and donors, and that eventually dries up.
Right.
And I remember there was one that was helping local villagers sell their handcraft items, and I thought, I was like, oh, this is really cool, right? But the way that it would work is a volunteer would have to drive a motorbike for 2 hours to this village to pick up a few items, drive it back, and then try to sell it online and ship it, and it would cost way more than it was supposed to cost, because it was so much effort. And then the only way that, and then all the volunteers, they wouldn't get paid at all. They wouldn't even have their gas reimbursed, and it was just it just wasn't going to last.
Right.
So I do think it's really important that the business, whether it's a social business or a nonprofit, it has to give enough value, but also receive back enough, value back from it, or money back from it, to continue it.
Right. So yeah, right now I'm involved in, actually it's funny that you brought hat making. I'm involved in a charity who's providing women with work, and we're making hats. So I design, and then we make those design work and supply to stores and local fairs. And actually we do have a margin, which, because it's already established social institute, then we're able to spend that margin on teaching primary English to little kids of the village.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're giving back, you're providing jobs, you're teaching people a skill, you're providing a product that people actually want to buy. But more importantly, it even with without people volunteering, it can keep going.
Right.
Yeah. So I really like what you guys are doing, not only with your side projects, but also Smena Station and building the community out here. I do hope that, this podcast helps connect some of the English-speaking nomad community and the Russian-speaking nomad community. So, this is, I think this is kind of the start of the two worlds coming together.
Yeah, I really hope so. And yeah, we'd definitely love to connect with anyone who's interested in joining our community or bringing Smena Station to any other places around the world, or just, to get connected with anyone who's interested in the whole co-living industry and digital nomadism, because there's bright future in there. There are a lot of more people getting remote work, and in the next several years, I think it's going to blow up, and so many works are going to be so many new opportunities to work remotely is going to be open, and there's more people coming to join our project and other digital nomad co-livings around the world.
So this mission of Smena Station is happy and healthy living for location and independent people as norm of life. So I think norm of life is actually what we stand for. I do believe that everybody, if there is a will, everybody can live. There is no limitation. You can live this lifestyle if you choose to.
Yeah, and we're all so fortunate that we were born in the age of the internet.
Right.
This is literally the first time in the history of the planet that we can work remotely from anywhere. And we can learn new languages, we can travel to different countries, we can take advantage of good weather year-round. And,
Definitely.
Get out of Siberia in February or March, April, and that we can, earn a living no matter where we are.
Right. So let's hope cable internet will come to Weligama and digital nomadism will be norm of life.
Yeah. And so big thank you for everyone who's been listening. I would love to see all of you out here in Weligama in Sri Lanka, or maybe at the next Nomad Summit. We're going to have our next one in Cancun, Mexico this October, and then again in Chiang Mai, Thailand in January. I hope to see you guys out there, as well as some of the Russian community.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, and if people want to reach out to you guys or check out Samana Station, check out your projects, how can they find you?
Well, it's very easy through the website, smenastation.com, SMENA station.com, or send us an email, again, smenastation@gmail.com. You can reach us as well. We'd love to connect. Any social media, Smena Station is the hashtag.
Really cool. So we'll have some links to all those in the show notes. Do you guys want people following you on your Instagrams or social media, your VK or anything?
Yeah, our project accounts, that's enough, I guess.
Really cool. So spasiba for coming, and
thank you, Johnny.
Spasiba for listening, guys. See you somewhere in the world.
До свидания.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.